Hello, what's up? And we're here again for a Pioneer Standard or main Pioneer deck tech. As you can see, the tribal list that I found on the recently concluded tournaments uploaded at the MTG Top 8 website. I suggest you do also check them for other lists, and you can also update yourself for the Pioneer metagame. But going back again with another deck tech here, which we call this one as the Goblins. It's like really like a Rakdos version here because of the land choices, but maybe it is more lean on the sideboard, wherein you can see here which is mostly using black color as card hosters, which I think also is a good color choice to add in this kind of a deck tech. So we go again why it's the tribal list, as we may say, for the goblins in the current metagame for the Pioneer format. Then we have 31 creatures, 3 enchantments, 22 lands, and 4 sorceries. So the only black in the main deck which reanimates your creature cards with mana cost 3 or less. And we'd also check on what are the card choices here for the creatures. So starting off with our 1-drops, we have basically 10 out of these cards. So you can see here we have 4 copies of Cacophony Scamp, 4 copies of Fireblade Charger, and 2 copies of Legion Loyalist. Now we go why the choice of Scamp here would be efficient. Because of its ability that whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you must sacrifice it and proliferate, and the damage dealt its dice is equal to its power. So the more lords that you have here, the more goblin pumps as even added, it goes with the bonus damage. So early on it can just become a 1-drop, but later on having also to attack and can be sacrificed for a good strike to 0 life total for your opponent would be your best option for this card. Also with the Fireblade Charger, is this just another 1/1 for 1, but if it's equipped it has haste, but with this deck it doesn't really have that one effect, but when it dies it deals equal to its power to any target. So one of these 1-drops will be very essential early on as an attacker, and later on can be used to just do the extra damage when it dies or is it sacrificed. And the next 1-drop, which I think has been also a relevant card not only for the goblin decks but also for the let's see, the Boros aggro, as I remembered, is Legion Loyalist. So this Loyalist is not only a 1/1 for her 1 with haste, but also has a battalion effect that whenever it attacks with at least 2 other creatures you control gain first strike and trample and can be blocked by creature tokens. So any relevant matchup that uses tokens or creature tokens as blockers would not be easy to block on your creatures because they would be bypassed. At the same time, getting your creatures first strike would be really relevant in combat damage and combat attack, for example. Now for the other 1-drop that can we call this one as a mana producer per se is 4 copies of Skirt Protector. So with this early drop, for example, you can use this one to go into a third 3 Goblin Chairwheeler, or go with the Lord of the Hobgoblin Bandit Lord, or any of the relevant, for example, the Babel the Mirror Breaker, which can be cast on turn 2. So in any instance, it can basically ramp up your mana, but you can still need a body or a goblin in play for you to go do a good pump with your lords. So with that kind of your 1-drop, which is basically 12 or 14 in total, we now go to the 2-drops in the deck, which goes with the Battle Cry Goblin, that's 4 copies, Conspicuous Snoop, that's 4 copies, and Roan Belt Hordmaster as the 2-drop Lord, that is also 4 copies, each of which has specific functions which we're going to discuss in a bit. So Battle Cry Goblin can use to add a pump effect, goblins you control gains haste and +1/+0, and then it will also have a pack tactics that if you attack with creatures of total power 6 or greater, you can create a 1/1 red goblin creature that's tap and attacking. So a bonus token will also be added on your board. Next, Conspicuous Snoop is like a card advantage per se because Playing with the top card will be revealed in casting goblin spells out of it from the top card. So as long as the top card is a goblin card, it has all the activated abilities of that card. So at any instance that you have, for example, Battle Cry Goblin and the top card, Conspicuous Snoop would also have that ability, which means that you can spend your extra mana to pump up your creatures, your goblins, and do some extra damage. And of course, Ronbell Holdmaster as a relevant 2-drop for pump effect, which gets your goblins +1, and there's whenever Ronbell Holdmaster or Goblin Control dies, exile the top card of the library, and then if it's a creature card that's goblin, you may cast that card until the end of your next turn. So we do set up with our 2 drops. I'm gonna go for the 3 drops of the deck, which is the 4 copies of Chain Whirler, which not only becomes a good 3/3 for 3 get first strike, but also gets you to deal extra damage of 1 damage to its opponent and its creature and Planeswalker they control. We have a copy of Goblin Bandit Lord, which is also a Lord pump effect, but it has this ability that you can pay 1 red mana, tap. Goblin Bandit Lord deals damage equal to the number of goblins that enter the battlefield under your control this turn to any target. So any instance that can be a relevant target, for example, a threat to your opponent, or an extra damage at the dome of your opponent's life total, you can use this ability for that kind of effect. Now for the Fable the Mirror, which is also relevant here, in which the deck has considered 3 copies, it will also create a goblin in the form of a goblin token that is the Goblin Shaman that can produce also treasure tokens when it attacks. You can also filter out some extra lands by the second lore counter, and of course having the reflection of Kikijiki, which is also a goblin, can get you to create tokens that's copies of Goblin Lords, for example, to get you of course additional pump effects and also giving them haste and also become a good attacker per se. So with that kind of setup, we only have the black card again, that is the recurring card, to have you return up to 2 target creature cards with a mana cost 3 or less, and then put the counter on either of them, and then menace counter on either of them. So any of the creatures that would be relevant in any given scenario, you can decide on whether if it would have menace or it would have that touch, so you can able to trade off to your opponent's creatures. Now for the quick rundown of your lands, of course mana fix in the form of Black Leaf Cliffs, Blight Step, Blood Creep of course, and Cavern of Souls to make sure that your goblin can't be countered, and of course Manland in the Den of the Bugbear, which can produce also has become a goblin creature token with this ability that can also create a goblin 1/1 creature token that is tap and attacking. Also some Sulphur Springs and a lone Sokensan for an added channel land that can be used also in this deck. That is a total of 22 lands. Now for the lineup for the sideboard, we can see here that we have specific cards to go against them. So we have 3 copies of Thoughtseize. We know the Thoughtseize can be really relevant against mid-range to control decks to get rid of their best card for only 1 mana. Also, Dumping Spear, which deals with the Lotus Field combo decks, which again hinder their mana cost, or lands that produces 1 or 2 or more mana, it will produce 1 colorless instead. And then of course spot removals would be relevant. We have Rending Valley against blue-white creatures. We have Go for the Throat as another solid spot removal for black, and Power World Kill would also be added for that. And the only 2-drop non-goblin creature that will be added to this deck is the Knight of the Shadow, which is against the Amalia combo decks. You can have this one to your opponents can gain life, and of course can be used as an attacker with a menace ability and can be used to be pumped later on for a good mana sink in the mid game. And last but not the least are 2 specific cards. We have a copy of Unlicensed Hearse that can be do against Graveyard Shenanigans and can become attacker later on, and 2 copies of Leyline of the Void, which I'm not sure if can be cast for free early on because of the quantity chances of these 2 cards, but any Shenanigans of the Graveyard would still be stopped of this card and the enchantment setup. So that's a total of 15 sideboard cards, and your average mana value here is surprisingly below 2 on the average mana cost. That's 1.95. We have a lot of 1 drops and 2 drops, and basically can be functional already with the 3 mana cost in play. And of course, it's mostly red. That's red is 47 with 4 for black. But the producers here are much be able to sustain that mana cost. And the tokens here, having our copy token, Goblin token. That's a 1/1 produced by the Den of the Bugbear, Goblin Shaman by the Fable of the Moorbreaker, Token Sun Spirits, and of course treasure tokens produced by the Goblin Shaman. So I guess that's pretty much it for this kind of deck. Again, Goblin, if you're looking for another variants of a tribal and still a fan of this archetype, as we can see that we still have some other aggro decks in the metagame, but you might have some fun using this deck in your local metagame or even in MTG online if you try to do some daily grinds of this deck or any other related tournaments that's added there. So I guess that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you for watching on this. Don't forget to like, subscribe. We still have more of deck tech and gameplay videos in the coming weeks and days, so stay tuned for that one. Be sure to notifications bell on so that we can have first-hand updated of new videos upload. Again, guys, thank you for watching and see you in the next video.